Podcast, A Beginning with John Nicolay. Welcome. This isn't my first podcast, and hopefully it won't be my last. I'm John Nicolay, managing editor of the Virginia Writers Project. I'm joined today by Amanda Stearns. Amanda is my metronome. She keeps the cadence, smooths the rhythm, and afterward, stitches my stumbles and silences into a cohesive narrative. The Virginia Writers Project began 4 years ago with a handful of writers exchanging ideas about how we might create a Virginia-focused learning experience. Most of us were retired educators or public servants, all seasoned writers in our own right. Initially, our vision was to offer something valuable to students interested in writing and the creative arts. Those early conversations lasted several months. A few instigators eventually drifted away. Understandably so. Publication can be demanding. It requires collaboration, while writing itself is infamously solitary. As a trained historian, I knew about the original Virginia Writers Project of the late 1930s. It was born out of the Works Progress Administration, a New Deal initiative that sought to employ writers, visual artists, and oral historians. Today, that project is best known for its slave narratives, interviews with formerly enslaved individuals, many of which are now housed at the Library of Congress. The visual legacy of the WPA lives on murals adorning post offices and public buildings. We've used some of these murals as cover art for our own journal, along with evocative photographs from the likes of Walker Evans, Russell Lee, Dorothea Lange, and many others. One WPA name I knew early on was Richard Lewis. I reached out to him, and he graciously offered his support for our endeavor. Since those beginnings, the Virginia Writers Project has grown to include a remarkable community of writers and illustrators. As of summer 2025, we've published 8 issues of our journal. It features poetry, prose, history, and visual art, a true literary and artistic showcase. This summer's the visual legacy of the WPA lives on murals adorning post offices and public buildings. We've used some of these murals as cover art for our own journal, along with evocative photographs from the likes of Walker Evans, Russell Lee, Dorothea Lange, and many others. One WPA name I knew early on was Richard Lewis. I reached out to him, and he graciously offered his support for our endeavor. Since those beginnings, the Virginia Writers Project has grown to include a remarkable community of writers and illustrators. As of summer 2025, we've published 8 issues of our journal. It features poetry, prose, history, and visual art, a true literary and artistic showcase. This summer, we introduce a music section within the poetry department, along with a musical and audio archive on our website. Most of that content is now available on YouTube, and a companion CD will be released later this year. We also launch a new venture, a series of short plays written for performance by teenagers in churches, schools, and community centers. The collection is called 20 Plays and includes original songs and verse. All of this might seem ambitious, and it is, but it's also deeply promising. Of course, I'm mindful of past efforts. One that comes to mind is The Reviewer, a literary journal published in Richmond from 1921 to 1925. When it folded, one of its editors reflected wistfully on the fine writers it published and concluded the reason for its end in a single word: indifference. Writers are, by nature, optimists, at least until their work is met with such silence that continuing feels unjustified. From anticipation to apathy, even the most celebrated writers eventually face the prospect of being forgotten. One of my personal research projects has been to chart the evolution of the Virginia Writers Club, founded in 1918. It reached its peak in the 1950s, but has since faded in prestige. Over the years, hundreds of writers passed through the Richmond chapter, many of them respected in their time. And yet, how many are remembered today? Perhaps Ellen Glasgow or James Branch Cabell still appear on syllabi, but the club itself is no longer the exclusive, high society group it once was. Today, it's a different crowd with different talents, and that's not a bad thing. When I think of the Virginia Writers Project, I think of legacy, a peg on which to hang a hat. Our journal is archived in the Virginia State Library. Maybe someday, some future English major will stumble upon it and decide to write a dissertation on what we did, what we wrote, and what we valued. And that's enough. We should all regard our legacies with humility and hope. Time blurs our intentions. The shifting current of culture and memory consign most of us to history's quiet corners. But still we write, and we share, and we believe.